Hello, I'm here to teach you about how to identify the difference between linear, exponential, and quadratic equations. So first, I just want to give you some examples of each. So linear equations, a couple examples of that would be y equals 2x minus 13 or 2x plus 3y equals 9. So linear equations have x and y and they have numbers. But really nothing too fancy. No exponents, usually not fractions, and the x and y are never multiplied together in linear functions. Exponential functions are whenever the x is the exponent. So for example, y equals negative 5 to the power x, or y equals 4 multiplied by 2 to the power x. If the exponent is x, it is an exponential function. Now, a quadratic function is whenever you have the biggest exponent is 2. So like x squared plus 7x minus 3. The biggest exponent is 2, so it is quadratic. It could also look like y equals parenthesis x plus 5 parenthesis squared plus 1. The biggest exponent is 2. It could also look like x plus 4 times x minus 2. Now you might be thinking in this last example there is no exponent of 2. But if we were to multiply, when we go x times x, that will make x squared. So even though it doesn't have an exponent of 2, if we were to multiply it out, there would be. And lastly, there are equations that are other. They are not linear, not exponential, or quadratic. They're simply other. Some examples of that would be y equals 4x to the third plus 11, because it has an exponent of 3. Or if it has a radical, that would be an other situation. Or if x and y are being multiplied together, that would be an other type of situation. So let's look at some equations and see if we can identify if they are linear, exponential, quadratic, or other. So looking at this first example, I see an exponent of x. If the exponent is x, that is exponential. In the next equation, I see x and I see y, but there aren't any exponents or anything crazy here. So this is just a linear function. In the next problem, I see an exponent and the exponent is 2. Anytime that the biggest exponent is 2, that is always a quadratic. In the next problem, I see an x and a y. There aren't any exponents, so this would be linear. In the next equation, I see an exponent of 3. An exponent of 3 is other. In the next problem, again, I see an exponent of 2. An exponent of 2 is always quadratic. Again, in the next problem, I see an exponent of 2 again. An exponent of 2 is always quadratic. In letter H, I see a radical symbol. Radical symbols are other. In the next problem, I'm looking at that and I see parentheses being multiplied together. So this will be a quadratic. And lastly, in this problem, I see an x that is part of a bigger fraction, that would be an other situation.